22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuned into Black Westchester's People Before Politics radio show, special Super Tuesdays that we're doing where we interview candidates. As we explained before, there were so many candidates we couldn't fit them all on Sundays, so we started our Tuesdays, Super Tuesdays, to interview the candidates. We're waiting for our guest right now. It is Miss Tasha Young. She is running for Greenburgh Town Supervisor. If she wins this election, she would make history as the first Black woman, I think first African American to serve in this position, to be elected in this position. So it's a lot on the line. She's running against 16-term Town Supervisor Paul Finer, who's running for re-election, who's been there 31 years, and she is attempting to give him the challenge of his life, because a lot of times he runs unopposed. Not being nominated by the Democratic Party does not bother Paul Finer because he's been winning without the nominations in all the previous elections. So, but he does have the Working Family Party nomination. Tasha didn't have officially the Democratic nomination. You have to have 50%, but she got more votes than he did. But you have to have over 50% to officially be the nominee.
How do you get more votes and not be the nominee?
If they're Greenburgh, you have to have 50% of the vote. She has 40-something and 43 something, and he got 40-something, and so she's the winner of that, but she can't be the nominee. You have to have at least 50% of the vote, and she's short of 50%, although she got more votes than Paul Finer. So they call it a plurality. That's what they call it. So and as we speaking, we just spoke her up. She is here. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to People Before Politics Super Tuesdays, where we do the candidates. I just introduced you and all that. Talked about the history you can make and who you're running against and all that. So say what's up to the people. Say what's up to the people.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. Hi, Lorraine. It's so good to see you.
Hello, Madam Superintendent.
Yes. I received that.
I'm practicing so that when I see you,
Absolutely,
I love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I want to welcome you to the show.
Yes.
And I want to
I didn't
spend,
get the right angle here.
I want to
Sorry.
give you an opportunity to speak briefly on this. So last Friday, we did a special edition of People Before Politics dealing with the Greenburgh Housing Authority and the relocation of seniors during COVID. And you have been an advocate for that situation. So just real quick, to get that out the way, if you want to speak on
Sure.
that, okay.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. The issue with the removal of the seniors, my issue is that it happened during the COVID-19 global pandemic when every elected official was basically telling everyone to shelter in place and to remain isolated. So I have to take you back to 2015 when I first heard about this potential relocation. As a missionary at Union Baptist Church, I know and still know many of the seniors there. Had intimate relationships with many of them, so much so that I would go over there and walk the development praying with seniors. I would make sure that the seniors had food. I started a food rescue operation by bringing food from both Starbucks and the Red Lobster to the seniors with one of the residents named Janet Daniels. And there was another woman, her name begins with a B, I believe it's Belinda. Those two women helped bring food from around the county into those complexes. And that was so important because a lot of seniors on fixed income would say, this food I'm so grateful for because it's the difference between me having food to eat or me having to pay for my medicine. So I have an intimate relationship with the seniors there. And at the time, as a student, I think at the time I was still pursuing my master's degree in social work, working 2 jobs, going to school, having a young adult daughter. I wasn't really sure how to be the best advocate. They did not want to leave at that time. And the best I could do was offer mutual aid, loving kindness, and caretaking. And that's what I did. Fast forward to 2020. So it's true when they say this deal has been in the making for years. Where have you been? Well, a lot of times people don't know how to advocate. People don't know the power that they have as a collective body. So when I came back home in November and I found out that the seniors were being moved, or later in January, I found out they all had been moved, save one woman who is a junior senior or approaching senior that lived there under disability. I said, we were all told to shelter in place. The governor had said this. The county executive was saying, if you don't have to visit family members, please don't. Please don't put your elderly, most vulnerable family members in jeopardy by visiting them during the holidays. So I became a little outraged that this project moved forward without consideration for the risk to people's health. Then I got a call from Renee Robinson, the Federal Housing Commissioner, and she gave me more insight as to what was going on and some of the advocacy that she had been trying to put into place, but wasn't able to. So I began to listen to people and ask questions at the town board meeting. And now here we are. There's been several public Zoom meetings about this situation. I really thank you. I'm so appreciative for your forum because I think finally we're able to move the dial forward. Prior to that, there was a lot of dismissal, there was a lot of disrespect, and there was a lot of, quite frankly, verbal and in some ways emotional aggression toward people that were simply asking questions, such as myself. I'm very happy to see that Renee has been vindicated in some aspects because she's been called a liar more times than I would like to have witnessed. And I just think that there's a way to do things. And even if you thought you were doing the right thing, I have to quote my sister, O.J. Yiser, was it the best thing to do? And now is the opportunity to course correct. But certainly without your forum, we were going in the direction of the blame game. Sometimes being in a formal forum with them, it felt like I was on a Jerry Springer show. It was a lot of yelling, a lot of anger, a lot of aggression. When the simple fact is, the people have a right to say how they want government and people who represent government to treat them. People deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and we weren't experiencing that. So I thank you for both breaking the story and then allowing this forum. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people in the town that are very interested in the well-being of these seniors. I knew that was going to happen.
That's what's up. I'm glad to be able to do it. I mean, it took about 3 weeks for us to even be able to touch it because we were busy doing so many other things.
Right.
But it was an important enough topic that we had a special forum, and I thank everybody for showing up who did show up and, try to make their case. So moving forward, and I do want to announce, so I won't say the person wanted to remain anonymous. So after that, after the show, during the show, one of the seniors spoke about, taking some money that she had and paying for another seniors to put food in her refrigerator or something because the other senior was hungry. And I found out later on that was money that she got from her son for a birthday. Well, a listener who would like to remain anonymous texted me later and sent me the $232 that she spent and asked me to anonymously give it to her.
Wow.
And Renee Robinson, that's her last name, Robinson, came and met me. I took it out to ATM and I put it in her hands, and she should be delivering it to her today, tomorrow, whatever. So she'll have her money back that she spent. And that's just a testament to people
that's amazing.
To how this person was moved by the story. A person who does not live in Westchester, a person who is a Republican.
Yeah.
A person who is white. So that's all I'll say about they want to stay anonymous. But they were moved by the show, and they wanted to make sure that they donated to Black Westchester. Made a donation to Black Westchester to anonymously give it to her. So we were happy to intercede in that nature, and thank goodness. But now moving forward, so now you are a candidate for town supervisor in Greenburgh, a position that Paul Feiner, the current town supervisor, has held for, I believe it was 31 years, which is 16 two-year terms.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing I want to get out. This is a 2-year term, and for people that don't know, so for towns, they have a town supervisor, where cities have a mayor. So I like to educate our audience on that. So why are you running for this position? Why now?
Wait, before that, Tasha, Greenburgh, is it just Greenburgh, or is it Ardsley or anything else, or is it just, how some towns have like additional villages, or it's just the town of Greenburgh?
So that's a great question, because Greenburgh is a complex matrix of 7 municipalities. So you have the town of Greenburgh, and then you have 6 villages that have their own mayors, their own police, and their own DPW or sanitation.
What are the 7? What are the 7?
So the town is the larger, the body, the largest municipality. But then you have the village of Elmsford, the village of Terrytown, the village of Irvington, the village of Dobbs Ferry, the village of Ardsley, and the village of Hastings on Hudson. So we have 7 municipalities, 10 school districts, and a minimum of 2 budgets. I'm still combing through the budgets.
And what is the supervisor's role?
So the supervisor is in essence the CEO, the manager of the town that's elected every 2 years. The supervisor has Greenburgh has departments, of course, that provide services like police and fire and planning, buildings and codes. Planning is part of conservation, and the Department of Community Services, Parks and Rec. So all of those department heads report to the supervisor. So the supervisor is their boss. But they operate, independently, but collaboratively, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So all the town employees are employed by the town. The town supervisor is at the head of that. And then we have, the comptroller's office. There's a fiscal department that manages the town's finances. And then the assessor's office, there's a town clerk that is also elected. The receiver of taxes is elected. So this is a governing body of the town. And we work the town works in partnership with the villages, but they are completely autonomous. Their contribution in tax dollars is a percentage, a very nominal percent, under 5%, to the town, where the unincorporated part pays the most into the town budget in taxes. So the unincorporated part are neighborhoods like Fairview. Some parts of the village of Elmsford are not the village, they're actually the unincorporated town of Greenburgh. Same with a part of Terrytown. You also have Hartsdale, which is Greenburgh. And then you have Edgemont, which doesn't have their own post office. So they have the Scarsdale address. And you also have the area of Dobbs Ferry Road, which is another area of the town. So there are different neighborhoods.
So what? I was going to get to this later, but since we're here now, there's a one unincorporated part that wants to be incorporated or wants to be their own. I know this is a battle that's been going on for a little while, right?
Yes. Yes.
So would you like to talk about that a minute?
Not really, but I think I have to.
Okay.
So that
is it East Irvington is in the unincorporated Greenburgh too. That's what a listener just said.
Yeah, so a lot of the villages have parts of the village that are in the unincorporated part of the town of Greenburgh, but they're so close in proximity and they're still in connection to the village that sometimes they get to share some of the services. But they are Greenburgh. They are Greenburgh. So the East Irvington is Greenburgh. This is all Greenburgh.
So and someone else said Fairfield is 76% African American.
Yes, the Fairview section, we all are familiar with that. That's the Manhattan Avenue section. That is Parkway Homes. When you go down Hillside Avenue, the Granada buildings and all the homes over there, that would be considered the Fairview section, all the way to the Bronx River Parkway.
So moving forward, but this goes a little bit back to what we started with. Someone asked, is the Greenburgh Housing Authority accountable to the current town supervisor, and will this be ratified if you are elected?
So there's 2 things that I didn't mention. So the supervisor's other role is a legislative role where he is a member of the supervisor, hopefully me next, is a member of the board and has a vote on the board of 5. So there are 4 town council people and the supervisor that make up the town board. That body appoints the Greenburgh Housing Authority Board.
Okay, so the whole body is not just the supervisor, but it's the body, the board that does that. Okay.
Right.
Okay, and I meant to ask that question. Friday. It came, we were getting into some good stuff, so I didn't get a chance, and I tried to let it go. But that was a question that a lot of people asked me: who appoints the board? Because someone was complaining that some of the board members have been there forever, like Paul, and and once he's appointed them, they're just there. They don't go for re-election or nothing. They're just there until another person is appointed or something. I'm not sure if that's how it is, but that's what I was told.
That's why forums like this are so important, because the government, the governing body current as it stands, just hasn't been transparent, and nobody really understands how they're doing these things and how long the terms are. Do other people get to run? How do you get to run? Who do you contact? No one knows any of this stuff. So, having forums like this, although it might be uncomfortable for people that have been doing things for decades a certain way, this is necessary in a democracy. The people have to be represented openly and fairly, and they have to know how to participate in their own government. You don't get to keep people out. So, forums like this, where the public wants to also know, how does all this work? Who are the board members? What are their terms? How do they get reappointed? So when I wrote an op-ed, questions are swirling around all of this stuff. And we would like to know, as residents town-wide, how does this all operate? Because taxpayer dollars are being spent. We have the right to know. And I think sometimes it seems as if people don't think that they work for the public, but you do. Elected officials work for the public.
Speaking about that, one of the things with the incumbent that's in there now, one of the things I noticed was when he reaches out to folks, he gives them his personal cell phone number or his email to message him directly. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I would want to call your office. If I have business or I have a complaint, or I would want to call your office. I'm not comfortable with yes, some people appreciate the familiarity, but every single time, man, I don't know.
He's been on our show a few times, and we always, the first time he was on, we had Yusef Salam of the exonerated 5 now. He wasn't exonerated yet. And we had Dr. Cavallo, Westchester County Independence chairman. And we all got a kick when he gave out his number. Doc was like, wow, look at this guy. He's giving out his home number. He's like, and he's giving out his and he had a car that had like the thing on the top of a taxi.
I remember that car, the red car.
Paul Finer, town supervisor, and it had his phone number. And some of our guests got a kick out of that, so I always tease him about that.
But don't you
even in the email I sent out to all of y'all afterwards, and I gave my cell phone number. I says, Paul, see, you're not the only one who can give out your number. I was like, I said, I always mess with you about that. So,
but does that mean that you wouldn't have staff?
Well, that's the point. I mean, in a professionally run organization, you have staff that are the experts in the field. So if I were to be elected town supervisor and a constituent wants a stop sign put up on their block, that is something that I have to field to the department that handles stop signs. And then as supervisor, because the message came to me, should I be elected, I have the responsibility of following up to make sure it gets done. It is not me that does that work. Neither is it the current supervisor. The whole system of constituent services needs to be modernized. Technology is available to us. So people call or email, that should go through a funnel system to determine where that is now allocated, because that's the department that does that work. We're beyond. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So no, you may not know Lorraine was the head of constituent services in Yonkers under 2 mayors. So she definitely knows what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's how you have to do it.
Like if I'm a town supervisor and I've got 15, like for example, seniors calling me about something on my personal self, how am I documenting that?
That's the point.
You know what I mean?
That is the point. And that's why things are falling through the cracks, right? So again, this body that is refuting claims and calling people liars, they really should thank Renee Robinson, because a lot of the things that they have put in place are because of her letter. Mm-hmm. So give credit where credit is due. You were not doing this before. Now you're calling, now you're checking on people. The suggestion was made by me to bring it even up a notch further, to professionalize it with social workers that are giving wellness checks. And even the source of that is the county. So you cannot sustain a constituent service operation that is effective and follows up on 92,000, the potential for 92,000 different residents having an issue by saying, call me on the phone. That is not how it works.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I mean, nothing wrong with that, but not at that level that everybody, you know.
I can't imagine, as the editor-in-chief and co-owner of Black Westchester and the producer and host of this show, too many people have my phone number. And I actually had to get a second phone. I used to joke with people that had second phones because too many people, like, I need to be able to put that phone down sometimes and, you know, be able to walk in, certain people have that number. But it's like, I can't answer everybody through the county. You know, you do my Greenburgh, I get, you know, there's an issue in Peekskill, there's an issue in Portchester, there's an issue in Ossining, Mount Vernon every day, you know, New Rochelle, Yonkers. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yes.
and every issue to that person is a very important issue.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I'm cool with a lot of people. So everybody's like, they think that like they're my personal, like, you know what I'm saying? Like they got that kind of access. And I had to tone down. So for booking the show, like Tasha, I know you well, but for booking the show, you had to go through the rain because I can't do everything myself. Like,
Exactly.
I was just burning myself out. So we have a question, a comment that's a question. The comment is, we need to build real relationships between the incorporated and unincorporated sections of Greenburgh to the benefit of all communities.
Yes.
The question is, can Tasha do that?
Oh, yes. You know, there's a path to do that. I actually do live in one of the river towns, and they are very much interested in what is going on around the town, as well as people who live down Central Avenue and in the Edgemont area. They're interested in what's going on in other parts of the town also. So I have several ideas on how to bridge the different communities and the different municipalities. One of them is through our students. So the students want to get together, they're getting together anyway. So throughout the 10 school districts, let's look to maybe do something that's a town-wide arts event, for instance. Maybe there's a town-wide concert that we can do with all the students, and they could participate as they see fit for the arts. Perhaps there is a town-wide festival. You know, we look to a park that's in the unincorporated part. Maybe we do it at different parks throughout the years. So maybe one year it's in, you know, Town Park, for instance. Maybe another year we do it in Irvington. So you have to create common gathering space for people. We just had close to, maybe the numbers are different, 200 to 500 people that just gathered in arts to stand in solidarity against the hate and violence against Asian American Pacific Islander people. So that is an example that people are willing to gather, and people from all over the county came to Ardsley. So we can replicate something like that. We can make destinations for people to gather throughout the town. Those are two ideas that I have. And then the third idea that I have is, in some aspects, the villages are more forward with environmental innovation, with green energy, than the larger town. So an example would be Hastings has their first battery operated police car. The town could talk to the mayor of Hastings, and the police department of Hastings could talk to the police department of Greenburgh. How did you get a police car that's 100% battery operated? That is very important. We need to look to the future for energy, and we need to get off of fuel injected engines as much as we can, because we're destroying the environment. Another example is at the Terrytown train station. The MTA has wind turbines. So as supervisor, if I were elected, I would talk to the mayor of Terrytown. I would talk to the state agency representative about the wind turbines. We have the Hudson River running through 4 of our villages. That is an opportunity potentially for wind energy off of the water. That's how you do it. You go to a place that has high wind activity. So these are ways, that's the third way, environmental innovation, talking to the town. Perhaps there's some intergovernmental contracts that are also known as shared services. So, there are ways. You have to start small, but there are ways to share services with the villages. Some of them are already going on, but I have ideas for more.
That's what's up. So one of the listeners said yes, a town-wide interaction. I would love a town-wide student musical group, like an orchestra or a jazz band. And someone else said new clean energy for Greenburgh is the future.
Absolutely. We got to think about rebuilding from COVID. So like you, I go around and I see small businesses boarded up, small businesses half open, half closed. We have to think of a way to rebuild after COVID. So we have to look for new industry, whether that's green energy alternatives or farming. We have to look to bring more money into the town in a sustainable way. Unfortunately, the current supervisor has bought car dealerships up and down 119, and I don't really know who that is benefiting. So I would definitely look for new industry, workforce development with new jobs, and we can do that in the unincorporated part, and we can do that in partnership with the villages.
Damon always says, and Damon is from Greenburgh and Woodland High School graduate.
Yes, he is.
And he always talks about how 119 there were so many Black businesses up and down 119, and that was like, I think his aunt had a shop or something there, and he said now there is no Black business up and down 119 anymore. So I know about the 119 issue because he's always talking about that. So yeah, I know. Let me ask one. I know. And it goes by what somebody said. One of the things Damon and I always talk about, and the county denies, and other people deny, and even Reggie Lafayette, when we interviewed him one time, said it's not true. Westchester County is very segregated. Yes. It appears that right. He said no, it's not segregated. Reggie had said they segregate themselves. That's what he said. But what when you have a town like Greenburgh with all the villages and some of the issues that I hear from various people in Greenburgh, it seems that Greenburgh itself is very segregated. The different, is that the case or no?
That is absolutely the case. One thing that I'm really enjoying, you all know how much I love policy, and I'm learning to really how much I love land use. The policies of the urban renewal process during the 70s were put in place, perhaps well-intentioned, but what happened is they zoned areas that were Black homeowners and Black business owners for commercial only. And over decades, obviously, because this was in the 70s, Black families, homeowners were displaced. That coupled with, prior to that, building both 287 and 119 that run east and west, segregated the Black families from the white families by roadways. So for instance, I'm from Elmsford. There is the northernmost side of Elmsford, which is predominantly Black, the Payne Street area. There is a federal housing site over there, predominantly Black. And now we have a lot of new families coming in that are from the Caribbean, Central, and South America. But we were separated literally by 119 and 287 because the southernmost part of Elmsford and the villages south of there, which would be Elmsford, Ardsley, Dobbs Ferry, they're all predominantly white with sprinkles of Black families here and there. But the reason I bring up the zoning and the transportation is because these were policy initiatives that might have been well-intentioned. We don't know. I have to do more research, but it definitely left a negative result for Black families and Black business owners. What I would say is an opportunity going forward is to have someone in office who understands how to do policy and how to do land use and planning from an anti-oppressive, anti-racist lens. And the way you do that is when you have developers come in, you have to ask questions and perhaps do an environmental study that includes a social or demographic based on race and income. How is this going to affect that aspect of the town? I would be someone that has that skill because I'm trained to do that. And I also negotiate land use decisions with developers. I understand the financing challenges that developers might have. And I would sit down, roll up my sleeves and say, listen, have you considered this funding option? Have you considered this? Because what we cannot do is continue to put up market rate and above market rate unaffordable, unattainable housing. That is how gentrification happens. And we don't have to do it here. You know, when I worked in Brooklyn, there were factors where it was going to happen regardless because of the jobs in New York City, the commercial industry. But Westchester is a little different. We're not as fast paced as that. We don't have the same demand for office space that maybe a New York City area would have. So we can certainly slow down doing development the way we've been doing it because it's displacing people.
You know, I was going to sound like when you was discussing it, like living on the other side of the tracks.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Now, I know some of the river towns, they like the feel of a river town.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you say that. Slow it down the pace because there's development for certain areas, but you want to keep the feel of the river town, right?
Yes, of course. I mean, they have their own government, you know, so you have to defer to the will of the people. And any supervisor would have to do that.
So, Tasha, what are some of the things that you want to bring in as a new supervisor? What are some of the ideas? And by the way, do supervisors do they do laws or anything like that or any legislation? Yeah, tell us about that first, and then tell us what some of your ideas are.
Sure. So the role of the supervisor is both executive and legislative because the supervisor is the top executive. So, you know, the buck would stop with the supervisor. So to say, I didn't know, that is not acceptable because if you didn't know, you should have known. And if you knew and it happened, you have to be accountable. So the buck stops with the supervisor, but the supervisor also does get to propose legislation, to vote on legislation. It's a 3-2 decision. There's 5 people that make the decision. So, but there's also a budget that has to get, you know, passed. The budget, I've been taught by state legislators, is a moral document. So if you want to find out where somebody is, you have to look at the money and you'll see where their priorities are. So that is part of the role of the supervisor. Of course, the board discusses hiring at the commissioner level and assistant commissioner level, the leadership of the town within the departments. Each department head attends town board meetings. So the town is functioning. And you know, that is how the supervisor participates in those areas.
So we talked about one of our listeners said we need truly affordable housing in the river towns. Without that, segregation will not end. I want to go further with that, and again, because of the topic of Friday's show,
right.
I find, and Dr. Bob said the same thing, most affordable housing in Westchester County, we cannot afford.
Right.
And Damon makes a decent salary and his wife makes a decent salary. They're both professionals.
Right.
They had to move to Orange County to live comfortably. You understand what I'm saying? Like people are moving moving, to Dutchess and outside of Westchester to live comfortably. What speak
Did she
about that?
finish? But she didn't finish my part 2 of my question, AJ.
Yeah, I wrote it down, so I got to get to it. Yeah, I got to get to it. So
Thank you.
Okay.
I promise you, yes, of course, Queen.
I'm sorry. I saw
I'm glad you.
I saw silence, and I said, "Okay, Lorraine's finished her questions.
It was
Let me
a
get in there."
pause.
Oh,
Yes.
it was a big pause. But go ahead. Yeah.
So Lorraine had asked, what would I do different?
Okay.
So there's a number of things that I really, think could be done better. It is affordable housing. Affordable housing we don't have enough of it in the county, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I did attend a webinar with the Board of Realtors, who has a new president named Crystal Hawkins, in her natural hair glory. And they were talking about affordable and also attainable housing. The affordable housing laws are put forth by HUD, of course, and they're also antiquated from the 70s. So you have the average medium income of sometimes 130,000 for a single person that they qualify for affordable housing. When that percentage is that high, what you will experience is the market rent being even higher. So that's why we have some apartments in the town of Greenburgh, across from Burger King, for instance, where you have studios and one bedrooms for $2,400. It's because of that AMI formula. So when you talk about affordable housing, it's important to say that the laws with HUD and the formulas with HUD, hopefully under Marsha Fudge, will be updated so that they're actually in line with the rate of inflation and the incomes that people locally actually have. So what we've created is essential workers like a sanitation worker, a new teacher, a new nurse. They are traveling into Greenburgh to work, but can't afford to live here. And the taxes is another issue. So what I would do differently is expand the set aside, which is now 10% for affordable housing, by an ordinance, and we would have to vote on it. But I would extend it to 25% and add the attainable housing in there with an income target of $50,000 to $100,000, because we really want to catch that cadre of professionals who are new in their careers or just essential workers, home health aides, CNAs, $50,000 to $100,000. That is the target that I would have for attainable. Keeping affordable, because there's some very deep affordability for people that make $40,000, for seniors and disabled, but definitely expanding that set aside from 10% to 25%. That's one thing I would like to bring. Another thing that I would like to bring, should I be elected, is open government, transparent government. The budgets are a little difficult to decipher, but I'm going to roll up my sleeves and really try to understand them. But you need transparency. And there are efforts at the current the current board makes, but they're not as interactive as I would like to see. I would like to see maybe an ask button. I would like to have a small business feature every week, maybe on the agenda of every board meeting, to try to rebuild back from COVID. Perhaps I would do a Greenburgh restaurant week. There are so many ideas I have to really be interactive with the people, meet the needs as they are right now. We could even do a round robin restaurant week. This week, we're featuring this village. This week, we're featuring these restaurants on Central Avenue. This week, we're featuring these dry cleaners in this area. Small businesses need a boost. I'm here. I'm patronizing small businesses, and they're saying, we're struggling to stay open. So not only as a town supervisor can you raise awareness, but you also have to make sure people have the resources. The campaign is going to do a series of videos on the PPP, on fair housing, on how to stay in your homes. People need this information, and you have to say it repeatedly. So when you do a video like that, and then people could access it at their leisure, that is responsive and open government.
I There we go. Wow. Um, let me. I'm gonna go back to the question I asked later, but because you covered a lot of that. So for people who look at, and these are things I hear, especially from our people. They're comfortable with what they know and who they know, and they keep voting for the same person over and over. And there's always a contender, an opponent who says, I would do these things, but things look different when you get in.
Right.
So can you share, like some of your experience, what you currently do now or whatever, like what qualifies you to run for this position?
Thank you so much for that question. So I'm a full-time candidate now, but my last position was chief of staff to the New York City majority leader of the New York City Council. Her name is Lori Cumbo. She is a history maker in her own right. She's the first woman and Black woman who has been appointed to that position. She is a bold legislator, and I was in charge of both of her offices. She has a district office and an office across from City Hall. We have a staff, and we had a number of different interns, and we made magic happen. And I was at the helm of that. So when you're a chief of staff, you're responsible for the legislative aspect of the office or the legislative department. So we had a legislative director, and we built a team around them. The budget director, you have a constituent services team, and you also have a land use component to the operation. And then you have to manage up because you have an elected official that you have to make sure they get moved. That's what we call it when it's scheduling. Okay, this meeting has to end, you have to be here. So, and then you have comms. So communications for an elected official in New York City is dynamic. That means you are dealing with every major, television, radio at any given moment, depending on what the issue is. The same with every written publication and social media and blogs at the same time. So I was in charge of all of that. And the reason why that is important is because the city council member acts as an executive in their district for things like land use decisions. So if a developer has a piece of property in New York City and they're zoned for a certain FAR or a certain density or a certain height, they have to ask the council member to consider a rezoning. So it starts and ends with the council member. So how that translates to Greenburgh is a developer would come to the planning board and the buildings department and say, this is the project, but the board has the final vote. So similar to what I would do in New York City, I was over land use, and I would inform the member of all the information that she would need to make the decision. Who is it going to affect? Who is it going to displace? Are there supermarkets there? Where are the schools? Is it, do they need a daycare? All of those aspects of a land use or development project, I would have to inform her about. So that's a transferable skill for Greenburgh. And I would have to do it openly because in New York City, they have something called a community board. And they're a body of residents who get to say how they want their environment and their neighborhood to be in all aspects, including land use. I also, dealt with COVID-19 crisis in New York City, which is very different than what we experience here in Westchester. The district that I worked for was at the epicenter of crisis. It was crisis after crisis after crisis. And this office that I worked for under my leadership met every single one of them. And we were responsive to our constituents in all ways that we could be. If you remember, in our district, Brooklyn Hospital was overrun this time last year with COVID-19 patients and people that lost their lives. There were bodies outside of the hospital and U-Haul trucks. That was in our district. We had to respond to that. We had to make sure we got testing to the constituents, and we did that. We had to make sure people were fed. There was tremendous food insecurity. And by the end of the year of 2020, we had gotten 1.8 million pounds of food into the district. After that, we had George Floyd. We just remembered Breonna in March. But last year, we didn't know about Breonna until we knew about George. So we haven't even approached the anniversary of George Floyd until May. That's coming up. So in Brooklyn, we dealt with COVID-19, we dealt with testing, we dealt with data based on race. The elected officials demanded that. They demanded to know who was getting tested by race. So now we're in the COVID cycle. Then we had the George Floyd riots. In the district, we had the Barclays Center, which was one of the main protest hubs. We had 5 NYPD precincts. So all of this, we were operating and we were responding to constituents daily. It was almost a 24-hour cycle of work. Then after that, we had gun violence every day. So I mentioned what happened last year, and if you follow my social media, I call it the year in all caps, a year later, because it was tremendous crisis, immediate response every day and every night. And I handled that, and I kept my staff together, and I kept my member together. And that is something that I am proud of, and I will not let anyone minimize what that takes.
Absolutely. Lorraine.
Yeah, Tasha, going back to the affordable housing, one of the things that that I've been hearing from folks in Yonkers regarding the affordable housing here is there's a couple of issues. Developers, they build apartments with only like 1 or 2 bedrooms because the more apartments they get, the more money they get. So you can't raise a family. And then they if you're single, you can't afford it. But then if you're married, you overqualify. How do you fix that?
That's a trick of the policy, you know, and that's why we need these policies to be updated. That's bad. And then another thing that's bad is you have to be legally married to qualify for affordable housing under the current regulations. So that eliminates people that are cohabitating. That eliminates people who might be a sibling group. You know that people are having to live together because they can't afford to live separately.
People with their parents,
people intergenerational, right? You can't have a mother-daughter qualify for affordable housing. So those are all policy measures that need to be updated. But if you take it outside of affordable, and you know, I don't know what the Yonkers government could do, and I'm learning what the Greenburgh government could do. But you can pass another type of regulation or ordinance or legislation that says we would like this kind of housing in Greenburgh. So, and then you have to provide incentives. The incentives are built in with the affordable housing. So, you know, this is working with county government potentially. This is working with state representatives potentially. This is working with the federal representatives potentially to make sure more people could get housing that they could afford. And you have to want to do it. You have to want to bring more people in. Westchester has this problem and Greenburgh has that problem. But yeah, it's a big problem. And like I said, if you look at the new president of the Board of Realtors for Westchester County, her name is Crystal Hawkins. And they're forecasting, they're looking forward at solving these kind of problems. Westchester cannot sustain herself the way we are going unless we bring more people into the county to live.
Two things I want to get to a question, but going back when you were talking about affordable housing and you were talking about inflation going up and, you know, the criteria for affordable housing going up, one of the things that is not going up is minimum wage. So it's like, you know, seriously, like, I mean, so it makes it hard for all of these, not just Greenburgh, but in Westchester, it makes it hard for new families starting out. You might not be at top dollar. You might not be, you know, affordable, and you know, you might be a city worker or a skilled worker, but you know, maybe don't have a college degree or something. You know what I'm saying? So you're starting at entry level type jobs. You're a hard worker. You're working 2 jobs. Your spouse is working a job or 2 jobs. I think that's a problem. I think we need to work on that as well. So
absolutely, wages.
yeah. So now I'm going to read this from a viewer, and I'm going to preface this is coming from a viewer, not not AJ Woodson, not Black Westchester.
Yes.
So the comment in the comment section says Paul and the town board have not appointed a Black commissioner to any department, only at the community center, which they think is Black, but it's not anymore. Will Tasha be willing to make changes if she wins? And I was going to speak on that before that question. One of the things I said, like in the city of Yonkers, I was talking about, judges are usually white men for years and years and years. Yonkers just elected two.
We got a white, we got a Spanish judge too. Judge Quinones running for Supreme Court judge.
Can I finish?
I had it through.
Can I finish? In the city court, they just elected two African Americans, and last year they just elected a Latina. Now that court looks more like the city of Yonkers.
Of Yonkers, right?
You know what I'm saying?
We could do more.
Of course, we could do more. Government doesn't always look that way, and according to this listener, if they're true, there are no Black commissioners in any departments in Greenburgh. So, it's important sometimes having a person of color or somebody who represents. It looks more like the community looks, not just one way. Would you be making any kind of changes like that? I guess was the question.
So, so Greenburgh is predominantly white, 76% white, and then other races make up the other 24%. That is not true. Greenburgh is actually more progressive than the county. The county just appointed their first commissioner in Mr. Towns for the Department of Social Services. Greenburgh had its first commissioner in Barbara Perry. So Barbara Perry was the town's first commissioner of the department. Then it was the TDYCC. It was the Fairview Greenburgh Community Center. Mm-hmm. It was FGCC. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And Barbara Perry was the first commissioner. And then Mr. Young, before her, he was, he founded, he's told it as being the founder, even though there are some mothers that were behind that too. We'll tell that story another time for another day. But Theodore D. Young was the executive director. Miss Barbara Perry brought the aspect and the component of social services to the Fairview Greenburgh Community Center at the time. So she is the first commissioner. And then, the last commissioner after her was Hopeton White. So he was the second Black commissioner. And then after him, you had Bill Carter. He was the third. And then you had
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. May he rest in peace. And then you had Andre Early, who has now gone to Westchester County Parks and Recreation. So they are in the process now of selecting the next commissioner, who I believe will be a Black person. And I believe there is also now a heavy presence of Spanish-speaking people in the community center, as well as Asian Americans in the community center. So, I'm from Fairview. I mean, I grew up in I'm from Elmsford, but I grew up in the daycare center, which is now the Lois Bronze Daycare Center, which was the Union Child Daycare Center.
Right next door.
I grew up there, right next door. And then I went right over to the community center as a teenager under James Robinson and Yolanda Robinson and all those wonderful people.
That's my girl.
Yes. So I wanted to give that history a little bit because Greenburgh is actually pretty progressive. We fight for it though. And I got to say, Greenburgh used to be and still is and will be again a hub of Black culture in Westchester County. We can rival the bigger cities. We're a little town and we're a small population, but nobody else in the county had the roller skating program. Nobody else in the county had the karate program we had. Nobody else, the jazz festival. Like we are here, and we are the holders of the culture. Our churches with the history that they have. Union Baptist Church, starting the daycare from the basement of the church. They have a wonderful recovery program that is offered to people at that church. The area of Fairview, and particularly Manhattan Avenue, is so important to Black Westchester proper, that we're going to keep that going. And if I'm elected, I'm going to do everything I can to maintain that thread of history, of caretaking. We take care of one another, getting resources. The community center was started with a federal mandate that it be Black, that it serve the people in the community. That was how the funding was derived. It's kind of like the funding that we're having now with the Black Lives Matter movement. And they're saying, we want this money to be allocated to Black initiatives. It was that when it was created. So
let me stop you real quick. I didn't want
course.
to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt you because you was on a roll. But the comment, the person was saying, other than the community center, there are no Black commissioners.
Right, but it's not really fair to say there are no Black commissioners in Greenburgh. So yeah, so what I would love to see, but this is universal. Let me also start by that. When I worked in New York City land use, I was hard pressed to see a Black face or a Latino face in land use, in planning, in the budget offices. That is an issue, because we have excellence from every race in every industry. So, hopefully, going forward, we would be able to really, really bring more people of color, every color, into leadership in the town. We do have the Department of Buildings. He is a Black man. He has that. Our town attorney currently is a Black man also. So again, Greenburgh is looking a lot more progressive and integrated than other parts of the county. So I would definitely like to keep that tradition, but there's so much of the intersection that needs to be included too. I know you don't want to hear that, but there is an intersection amongst LGBTQ that needs to be included. We need to have more language access, Spanish, Korean, perhaps. We need to see who's in the town who might need, language access where English is a second language.
That's very important, and Lorraine brings up that a lot. Where people that English is not their first language, things that are sent out, everything is always sent out in English, and they don't have people that can interpret tell them what it is, that they miss some of the information. So that is very important. Wow. Lorraine.
Tasha.
She says I don't give her enough question time, so I'm trying to get a question.
We fight every episode. You already know. Tasha, how long are you willing to serve for?
I really would like to be elected and serve a consecutive of 5 to 6 terms. They're 2-year terms. I would like to have that amount of time, because land use, you need time. So I'm experiencing, with Lori Cumbo, it's 2 4-year terms. So some of her land use projects, she won't get to see finish. It's not enough time. So you need at least 10 to 12 years, but you don't need more than that. I would love to be in office for 5 to 6 consecutive terms and set up the next supervisor so they could bring their vision. And so they could bring their innovation, because if you've noticed, things are happening quicker than they ever have happened before. So to be in office for 30 years, Greenburgh's only had 2 supervisors for 50 years. I'm not even 50 years old yet. 2 supervisors. 2 supervisors. So, and I believe when I speak to district leaders, they remember when Paul Feiner was talking about Anthony Veteran being there too long, and that he was running on change, and that he was running to not be there as long, and now he's going for his 30th year.
Yeah, I think 14, that's good. That's good. When I talk with people they've been in office too long, I'm thinking about people like Elliot Engel was in office too long. I'm sorry for people who like them. I think he was in office too long. I think there are certain people in Congress that have been in office too long. They're all dinosaurs. I think Paul Feiner's been in office too long. You know, like I hate to say, I got nothing against the guy, but you get comfortable, and you know, and it just becomes your lifestyle, and you lose that energy that to envision new things, and you become complacent, and
Yeah.
after a while, it's like, okay, you know what? You did a great job. We appreciate all you did. Okay, time for the next one, you know? And when you don't want to let it go, that's when I see this the biggest problem.
I have a comment to
So
that. I know, AJ, you're okay. I'll wait.
I was going to ask you. So, are you in favor of term limits if that's the case?
So, I can't call them term limits per se. And the thing about Congressman Engel, the Constitution is set up, or the rules of Congress are set up, that you don't get a chairmanship in any committee until you're in Congress for 20 years. So they would have to like amend that rule, amend the Constitution to change that, because
But I mean in Greenburgh for town supervisor.
I know, I'm trying to get
Okay.
there. But legislatively, sometimes it might make more sense than an executive office, is what I'm trying to say. So Congress, to be in there 25 years, you have 5 years of a chairmanship, which is very important. That's very important. So they have to change that whatever mandates that to be. But the president can only be in there for 4 years for 2 terms because it's an executive function. So for the supervisor, which is an executive position that has a vote on the board, I think it's very appropriate to say a term limit should be there. But I can only speak for the supervisor. I could certainly, if elected, try to encourage the other board members. But legislators are a little, it's a little different. But for the town, I don't think they need to be there that long.
So would you say that 10, 12, 14-year period?
I think it could be longer. I think, like Lorraine said, maybe 16 years for a legislator. Because also what we're experiencing at the New York City Council is everyone's kind of turning at the same time. So the mayor's leaving, the speaker's leaving, 21 members of the city council are leaving. Like, it's going to be a new New York, and everyone is going to be starting, kind of fresh. That's probably going to be a little uncomfortable for a while. So, some continuity somewhere, like a tiered kind of changeover system, I think would be good.
Well, yeah, 16 years for places like Mount Vernon and Yonkers would be 3 terms for the mayor. Well, no, actually would be 4 terms, right? 4. Yeah, actually would be 4 terms. So, and I don't think you need, 3, maybe 4 terms. I think that's, that's after a while you're, I think now.
At the end of the day, the people set term limits.
Right. Well, that's what Ernie Davis, when they asked him about term limits, he said, we got term limits. When the people was tired of me, they voted.
When the people vote, it's true. That's the term limit.
You're gonna see. Watch what's gonna happen in Greenburgh. Watch. You're gonna see term limits in action.
Yep.
So when we had Paul on the first time, and we had Doc Cavallo on, he was talking about people in Congress walking around with oxygen tanks, and like being in that office till you die, like that's the retirement home. And he was like, and he was pushing the button about term limits. He said, but I guess, and Paul sitting right next to him, 2 seats from him. I guess if Paul said, you're doing a good job, I guess you could be there a little longer. But he was saying that we need more term limits, because you need a change of ideas. I do believe what you said, like that tier thing, like in Mount Vernon, we have 5 city council. So 1 year, 2 of them are up, and then 2 years later, 3 of them are up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like 2 of them are up the same time as the mayor.
Right. That's how it is in the town.
Right, and 3 are up, which would be like now her midterm. Like this would be Mayor Patterson Howard's midterm election, like they say this is her midterm, and then you have 3 change now. Right. So I think that's good. I think that's a good balance,
yeah.
But you don't
that's
want
you
don't want a clean sweep, and sometimes a clean sweep is necessary. Let me just say that. Sometimes things are so bad you need to just start from scratch. That is sometimes
the White House.
Necessary. But
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but but I think the chair thing is a good thing, and I am for term limits. So you know.
Yeah, and I could answer the Edgemont question. You know, it's a very, very unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in this
Edgemont is
town.
the one that wants to incorporate. That's
Right,
to incorporate. Okay.
right. They are they have had it up to here, and you know, this is a situation that was created by the current supervisor. And talking to them, you would think, you know, that I did something to them. And I'm really working hard to learn more about the issue. As someone in the unincorporated part, I would like to see the town remain whole. But they have some very, very, very legitimate concerns. And I just ask for a chance. If elected, would you give me a timeline to try to turn some of these things around? That is their prerogative. You know, they could say yes, they could say no, they could say, listen, our timelines are up, we've had it up to here, and then they will proceed as they see fit. But I would ask for a chance. You know, I would ask for, like I said, a timeline. If it's a 2-year term, give me 1 year, give me a year and a half. Let's see if we can cure some of these issues that you've been dealing with for 29 years or, you know, 12 years or whenever the rift had started brewing.
Now, coming to the end of the show, is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to everybody to know?
Well, you know, I just want to say that we just experienced coming out of quarantine during COVID-19. And we got so used to our own homes that when we went outside, it was like, oh, this is what this is like, and this is what that is like, and oh, I'm getting fresh air again. And it's kind of an analogy for being in office for 29 years. You have forgotten what it's like to look at a situation with fresh eyes. You know, you're kind of, your muscles are a little stiff. But someone that is coming in with fresh ideas, with fresh eyes, can look at the same problem and probably produce 7 different solutions. You saw it on your own show. The only thing that the supervisor and the board at the time were able to do was say, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying, and call me, and everybody's happy. And that was just not true. So now here I was with fresh eyes, fresh resources, a whole new network. I could think of 4 people in my own personal network. One's a visiting nurse. One works for the Office for the Aging. One is a clinical social worker. Another one is an elder care worker that can come in and bring their expertise and their organizations to care for our seniors. That's a perfect example. So you need someone with fresh eyes. You need someone that understands the trend, and the trend is equity. The trend is building a longer table, not a bigger wall. We saw that with this last president. So this is what I offer to people. And I have expertise. I have a can-do spirit, and I roll up my sleeves and I do the actual work. And I know how to run an organization. So this is what I offer to the people of Greenburgh. I hope they give me a chance. Please go to my website. It's votetasha.com, VOTETASHA.com. And you will learn more about me. You'll learn about the upcoming events we have. We are a dynamic campaign. We have a great team of volunteers that we're going to build on more and more each day. So come join us, and we have fun and we're interesting.
Okay, so you took my next question on how people can contact you. You already so just this is a yes or no question I'm going to ask, and it's because of a listener asked. Would you be? I know you couldn't solely make the decision yourself, but would you be for the term of town supervisor being 4 years as opposed to 2 years, like say your neighboring city, White Plains, which is right there, and how the other cities, the other, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, Yonkers, would be that something you might be interested in pushing or something, or no?
I would make the case. You would be interested in that and hearing that answer, Lorraine?
No, I think it would make sense to increase it to 4 years, because if you go in, so first of all, supervisor's a hard job. You're going to be working hard for the first year, and then next thing you know, you're right back in campaign mode, or you're taken away from the progress that you want to show to folks when you go and make your case for reelecting you.
You know, that's a really good point. I would definitely take it to the people. And you're right, it's very daunting. And I hear from members of Congress all the time, AJ, that as soon as they are elected, they have to start fundraising for the next election.
County legislators too. County legislators
too.
So after 1 year, it takes you a year to get acclimated and everything, and then you're campaigning for the next.
I would definitely make the case to the people, you know, and I would have to earn it, right? I would make the case to the people. I would make the case to my colleagues on the board. Let's look at this. Let's look at what we could actually do in 4 years, as opposed to 2, because fundraising is a necessary component to running for office. It is one of the most uncomfortable things that I've ever had to do, which is go through my phone list and ask my friends for money. But you have to do it. You have to do it. And campaigns, you know, you have to pay campaign staff. You have to pay for attorneys. You know, there's things that you have to pay for to keep the campaign solvent, and without money, you can't do it. And we don't have the matching funds like New York City has. They have an 8-to-1 matching fund. But so we don't have that. So it's dollar for dollar here. And you're right, AJ and Lorraine, it's distracting. You know, you have to do the job, but you also have to fundraise. You also have to campaign and have 2 separate staff. So you have the staff that you have as an elected official, and then you have a campaign staff, and they have to be kept separate. The finances for your campaign have to be measured, regulated by a treasurer. So yeah, you're right. You're running 2 different businesses while being an elected official.
The city council in Yonkers City, it was 2-year terms, and what they did was, which is weird too, but they got 2-year terms, and then the next election is 4-year terms, and then the next one is 2, and then the next one is 4.
That is interesting. I would like to talk to some of them about how that's going. That's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, Mayor Spano did that. You can contact him.
So in closing, I asked all candidates 2 questions that have nothing to do with the campaign. And I don't think I've ever asked you these questions yet, because you weren't a candidate. So if your house was on fire and you could only grab 3 things, what would they be?
Okay. I'm looking around my house. Oh boy. Okay. So honestly, I was gonna say probably my phone. I feel terrible, but probably my phone. I probably would bring at least one of my plants. I'm a plant mommy. And probably I would really be sad if my books burned. And my photos. Oh God.
You have a lot of books. You have a lot of books, yes.
I have a lot. Right?
I helped you move, yes. You have a lot of books, yes.
I have a lot of books. I have a lot of photos. So I guess, you know, since I'm recently moved, I have a bag of photos. I would take that because I've been in the fire before. I lost all my high school photos. I lost all my childhood photos. So photos is a big thing.
Yeah. I lost everything in a fire too, yeah.
Oh, it's terrible.
I lost mine in a flood. I did the right thing because I move around a lot. My mother was always situated and stable, and I had stuff in her basement, and she had a flood in her basement, and I lost everything. So yeah. So the second question, the last question is, if you were a superhero, who would you be and why?
Okay, I got to think about this one too, because of course, who doesn't want to be Storm? And I have white hair, right?
Right. I don't get that answer a lot.
I want to be Tasha Young.
Oh, and back at you. We are reflections of each other. Let's see. I do like Storm, but I don't want to run the weather. I think I want to be like something else, like the Dark Phoenix, like that one. The one that works with her mind. That one. I want to be her.
Okay. Definitely the first time I've got that answer. Most women,
I want to control people's mind.
most women take the easy route and be like Wonder Woman. That's usually most 90% of all women. 90% of all women say Wonder Woman. That's just like
no. See, Tasha's smart because she sees somebody in the podium talking something she don't like, she'll be like, with the mind playing a Jedi mind trick. Yeah. She's smart.
Lorraine,
That was a smart answer.
Lorraine, your skin looks amazing.
Oh,
Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
Nothing. Something. 54, going on 55, Tasha.
You look beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Likewise. Thank you.
You too. You look beautiful too, AJ.
Okay, I was
You
gonna say,
look
like,
beautiful too, AJ.
I was like, yo, can AJ get some love? I shaved for you and everything. You should have seen what I look like with, like,
I went to his house. I was like, AJ, you got hair? You have
like,
an afro.
like literally, like, yeah, you could comb. I mean, and it was all.
Wow.
And it was happy to be nappy because I wasn't doing nothing with it because I wasn't going nowhere. So the last few shows, I just put a hat on, and
I saw that.
Yeah, so I had the hats on, but it was starting to come out the sides of the hat though, like stuff. Like, yeah. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Wait, primary. What's primary day?
Oh, thank you so much for reminding me. So please vote Tasha D. Young. That's my name on the ballot. June 22nd, 2021.
Okay.
And all the regular AJ, all the regular Greenburgh polling places are still in place.
They're still in place, and we will provide, first of all, we're doing a heavy voter registration initiative, and then we're going to make sure people understand early voting, absentee voting, and voting in person.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. That's the 22nd. Great interview. Good luck. Great interview. June 22nd. Other people are answering for you too. June 22nd. June 22nd. So
got fan club.
Yeah. So I want to thank you. I want to wish you luck.
Thank you.
With everything that you're doing. And continue fighting for, advocating for the seniors and a lot of those people. I know some of the work that you've been doing. So I definitely want to applaud you. I've asked you last words. Any last words?
I just want to thank you again. Those who know a word of prayer, keep us in prayer. And we're going full steam ahead. I cannot thank my staff and my colleagues enough. My daughter is now coming on board. My dad was out there collecting petitions. It's a family affair. And, we're just going to keep it going. And we're going to talk sound policy. There is no need to be, personal. This is about the policy. This is about facts. And this is about a difference between who the current supervisor is and who I would be as a supervisor. And we're going to take care of one another. Sandy Burnaby is a supporter, and us social workers are watching how people are being treated and how people are responding. We're still in a global pandemic, the bottom line. People have experienced grief and trauma. So in the midst of this, we're running a campaign. The petition season, I would have done it differently if I were the governor, but I'm not. But, it should have been digital. Amen. Thank you. It should have been digital. We should not have been required to knock on people's doors. But thank God people were safe. I was squirting hand sanitizer on people's hands after they used the pen, doing everything we really can to make sure people are safe. So please stay safe. Ask me anything. I'm available for meet and greets, and I'll be about town, and we'll post on social media and also on the website where I will be. And I just want to thank you.
There's a danger in interviewing people that you actually know. So the Super Tuesday episodes are an hour long, and the time flew by so fast. We're 20 minutes over, but it was a good interview, and I'm glad, and I hope everybody, I hope it helps people make more informed decisions at the ballot box when it comes to voting in Greenburgh, and I hope this helps with that. In your selection of a candidate. With that, I bid you adieu.
Thank you so much, and take care of yourselves.
Good luck with everything, Tasha.
Don't
forget, people, vote for Tasha Young.
Thank you.
Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, good night.
Bye-bye. So that was our Super Tuesday episode. What is this, like the fourth or fifth one? I can't even keep track. But Greenburgh Town Supervisor candidate Tasha D. Young. Any last words, Lorraine? I know we have the Mount Vernon Forward City Council ticket on next week, which Caitlin Gleason, Danielle Brown, and Ed Poteet are our guests next week. So it will be a little longer than an hour since it's 3. We're going to put them all out at the same time, but it'll probably be more like 90 minutes, since it's all 3 of them. That's our guest for next week.
That's the 30th.
Yes, so everybody tune in for that. The Mount Vernon City Council race the Mount Vernon race is going to be definitely heated, and you want to know who the candidates you should vote for, so we're going to try to start getting them on. But the first ones are the Mount Vernon Forward ticket of Caitlin Gleason, Ed Petit, and Danielle Brown. So hopefully you'll get to know a little bit more about them, and we'll have some of the others on after that. So
and then right after the week right after that, April 6th, we got Judge Quinones, who's running for Supreme Court judge.
Okay, so that's our next 2 weeks, Super Tuesdays. Any last words, Lorraine?
No, that's it. It's been a rough couple of weeks for everyone with all these shootings and COVID, and I mean, we've gone through a rough time. I'm just sending prayers, love, and light to everybody. That's it. Praise, love, and light to everybody, and
I didn't do this Sunday, but my condolences to my brother Kenneth Chamberlain for his loss.
Another one.
He's been fighting for justice for his father for, I believe, 11 years now, 10, 11 years, something like that. I was with him when we went down to speak. He went to speak for a family whose son got killed by the police in Brooklyn. And it was the 1-year anniversary, and he went down there. And on the way back, he found out that his daughter was in a car accident and she passed. And, I watched this man try to stay strong. And he was more concerned on his kids and his mother finding out from him and not on Facebook. And he was holding it down. And I know, that was tough. And I've seen some of that. And now his older sister has passed. And I think Friday night, I believe. Friday or Saturday. I think it was Friday. And, I just asked Damon, because him and Kenneth, grew up together. I said, you have to, the first thing I said is, how much more can one person take? And he's still out there fighting for justice for his family and everybody else's family, fighting for criminal justice reform. He was on the reform panel that Latimer had, fighting for the, criminal justice reform for the county. He's a co-founder of Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. I just say that to say to everybody, you see a very strong man out there being strong for everybody else. Now we need to be strong for him. So all my praying people, pray for my brother for strength. And I just wanted to say a couple of words on him because I didn't say it Sunday. So I want to end with that. And
can I just say condolences to the new mayor of Portchester, Louis Marino. About 2 days, I think it was just a couple of days before the election, he lost his brother. And then it was the election, and then the next day he volunteered at the fire department where he volunteered, and then the following day after that he lost his mom.
So officially you can announce, because the election was March 16th, that he won and will be the next. Yeah. We never reported back on who won that election. So
yeah,
you already said that the mayor now. So yeah, so he.
Mayor-elect.
He officially won their village election, which was March 16th.
Can you see this picture? Hold on.
You are moving, yes, a little bit, yes.
Okay, just
Who is that?
I don't know how to do this. Okay. See
Right
this
there,
kid
but-
right here?
Yeah.
16-year-old kid. He's been missing for Yonkers for 6 days. His family is really, mother's completely distraught.
Send me the information and I will put it up tonight.
Yeah, he's all over social media. His name is Jesus Jadiel Ramirez Cruz.
Yeah,
He's
just
16
send
years
me.
old.
Yeah, just send me the information and I'll put it up tonight. And
All
that'll
right.
go up
Well, I
tonight.
got phone numbers. There's a reward, everything.
Yeah,
Everyone's
send me that stuff and I'll put it up tonight. So with
right.
that, thank you everybody for tuning in, for riding with us, for all the comments. Stephanie Swan said prayers to the Chamberlain family, and she said thank you AJ and Lorraine for having this show. Somebody said I love you, Tasha. Nancy Cater Maldonado said great interview, good look.
Hey, Nancy.
Somebody else said great interview. Yes. And somebody said, yes, that was a perfect answer for Tasha because she thinks with her mind on who she wanted to be the superhero. That was one of the comments. And Maddie, Cheatham, is that how you pronounce it? Cheatham? She said Tasha with a heart. She posted Tasha with a heart. So yeah, that's our show for today. We'll see you Sunday, and we'll be back here next Tuesday with the Mount Vernon Forward candidates. Until then, peace.
Peace.